up, girl?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Youth Church. So glad you're here. This morning, we're going to be talking about the story of the Egyptian midwives and how they saved baby Moses from Pharaoh's evil plan. I hope you're having a good morning this morning and you're all snuggle, cozy with your family. And I'm so glad that you are here. It's our second lesson in our three-part series about the God who sees. And so now, go ahead and get those things that help you see: binoculars, sunglasses, flashlight, and then let's start with our gathering song, So Glad I'm Here.
I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. I'm so glad I'm here, I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. I'm gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here today. You know I'll sing while I'm here, gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here today. And joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here today. You know joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here today. And Jesus is here, Jesus is here, Jesus is here today. Jesus is here, my Jesus is here, Jesus is here today. I'm so glad I'm here, I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. You know I'm so glad I'm here, I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. And blue skies and rainbows, sunbeams from heaven are what I can see when my Lord is living in me. I know that Jesus is well and alive today, makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Tall mountains, green valleys, the beauty that surrounds me all makes me aware of the one who made it all. I know that Jesus is well and alive today, makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised promised me that we never would part. And Jesus is well and alive today, makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. That the highest King would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. Oh, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. The sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
This morning, I want to talk about our daily prayer. And this is a movement prayer where we'll be moving our bodies and not necessarily speaking with our words. And it comes from this woman who lived in the 14th century. She was a Christian, and her name is Julian of Norwich. Here's her picture on the screen. Julian of Norwich. And so this is a movement prayer, so I want you to follow along with me, okay? It's about awaiting God, allowing God, accepting God, and attending to the work of God. Okay, so here's what we do. We sit or stand with our hands cupped like this. And this is to receive whatever God wishes to offer. So go ahead, cup your hands. The next part is allowing. We reach up, stretching our arms up high over our heads with our palms faced open. This is allowing God to speak to us. Then we bring our hands down to our heart and we cup them towards the body like this. And this is for accepting what God brings. And lastly, we do attend, which is we extend our arms in front of our body, outstretched, ready to respond to God's will. Just like that. Okay, we're going to do it again. Here it goes. So you can sit or stand. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. Here we go. What do you think about that prayer? I think it's great, because sometimes when we're praying, it's hard to think about things to say. And Julian of Norwich gave us this prayer so we could just use our bodies to pray to God. I love it. It's something you can just do, and then you can don't have to think about words to say, because the Bible tells us that God already knows what it is we need even before we speak it, even before we say it. So we know that when we pray, just even physically, getting our heart and our mind in that space, sometimes if we can move, that helps to get our bodies. Our bodies help our mind to get to the place where we need to be.
Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. If you're scared of the dark, I'll be your guiding light. If the flood waters come, they won't wash you aside. If you're caught in the storm, I'm your safe place to hide. Don't be afraid, I am with you. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. And if you need a friend, oh, I won't let you down. If you feel the earth shaking, I'm your solid ground. If you're feeling alone and like no one's around, don't be afraid, I am with you. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. Don't forget that I made you. Don't believe that you're not enough. I'll never leave or forsake you. Try to remember my love. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Called you by name, you are mine. I have called you by name, you are mine. I have called you by name, you are mine.
So our story this morning happens while the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. Now, Pharaoh was afraid that the Israelites were going to grow so populous and be so many people that they would rise up and take over the land of Egypt. So he ordered the midwives to kill all the Israelite boys as soon as they were born. Now, the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, defied Pharaoh's orders. Now, Shiphrah and Puah are really interesting characters in the Bible. Some people think that they were Israelite midwives, that they were Israelite, and that's why they didn't carry out Pharaoh's orders. Others think that they were Egyptian midwives and knew that what Pharaoh was ordering was wrong. I found this great video that teaches about Shiphrah and Puah, and I want you to listen to it. And there's some words that are a little bit different. Paro, when the woman is talking about Paro, she's referring to Pharaoh. So watch this video, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Meet Shiphrah and Puah. When we first see them at the beginning of the Exodus story, they're introduced as humble midwives, Hameyaladot ha'ivriot. This can mean the Israelite midwives or the midwives of the Israelites, which is a very important difference. They help mothers deliver babies, and they're important here because Paro's murderous plan to kill the Israelite baby boys involves midwives. He tells them, here's what you have to do. When an Israelite woman is giving birth, check to see if it's a boy or a girl. If it's a boy, kill it. Tell her that the baby was born dead. If it's a girl, let it live. Initially, we have every reason to think the midwives will go ahead with this plan. Paro has the power to kill people. He's able to afflict an entire nation. It would take a lot of courage to stand up to Paro, but that's exactly what Shiphrah and Puah do. The Torah tells us that they feared God, and because of that, they let the babies live. When Paro confronts them, they bravely lie, telling him that by the time they get to the Israelite women, they've already given birth and haven't had the opportunity to carry out the orders. Paro is forced to move to his next plan, to throw the baby boys into the Nile. But who knows how many babies Shiphrah and Puah managed to save in the meantime? There are two traditional ways to read the story of Shiphrah and Puah. In the first read, Shiphrah and Puah are themselves actual Israelite women. They're standing up for their friends and family, willing to risk death so that their people don't suffer. The confusing part of seeing them as Israelites is why Paro would have thought they'd carry out his plan at all. One possible reason, Paro assumes that everyone is afraid of him, and he doesn't think that people have courage of their own or that they're willing to take a stand for what they believe is right. Another possible reason is that historically, the Israelites haven't always been great about protecting each other. After all, the way the Israelites wound up in Egypt in the first place was because Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Maybe Paro figures that this is a people who don't look out for each other. Shiphrah and Puah are the first to prove that maybe that's not true. The second way of reading the story and the phrase Hameyaladot ha'ivriot is that Shiphrah and Puah are Egyptian midwives who help Israelite women give birth. In some ways, this reading of the story makes a lot more sense. Of course, Paro would assume that Egyptian midwives would be willing to carry out his order and kill Israelite babies. Why would they not? Like the rest of the Egyptians, Paro figures these midwives are afraid of the Israelites and willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that they're controlled. In this reading of the story, Shiphrah and Puah's active resistance is a little less obvious, but deeply important. It shows us that all Egyptians are not the same. There are some, like Paro and the taskmasters, who are willing to do whatever it takes to maintain power and control. But there are others, like Shiphrah and Puah, and like Bat Paro, like Paro's daughter herself, who rescues baby Moshe from the Nile. These Egyptians fear God and are willing to look out for babies and vulnerable women, and are willing to take chances with their own lives rather than go against their own consciences. Who do you think Shiphrah and Puah, Hameyaladot ha'ivriot, are? Israelites who saw their chance to stand up for their community, or Egyptians who knew what they were commanded to do was wrong? Either way, this act of courage is what sets the whole story of the Exodus, the Israelites' freedom from slavery, into motion.
Okay, what a video, what a story. Shiphrah and Paro stood up to Pharaoh. Now, what do you think? Do you think they were Israelite midwives, or do you think they were Egyptian midwives? I kind of think that they were Egyptian midwives myself, because I think that they stood up to Pharaoh knowing that what Pharaoh wanted to do was wrong. Our scripture verse for this morning is from Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, and it says, "I've commanded you to be strong and brave. Don't ever be afraid or discouraged. I am the Lord your God, and I will be there to help you wherever you go." Boy, that is such a comforting word to me. And I guess in our scenario is that God will be there to comfort us wherever we don't go, since a lot of us aren't going anywhere. I think about this verse and about the ways that it talks about how God is seeing us and protecting us. But the midwives in Egypt, they had a really difficult situation, and it required a lot of courage. The leader of the entire country was directly telling them to do something wrong. Their own lives were at risk if they refused. But Pharaoh could have easily killed them for disobeying. This is a pretty extreme example of bravery. J.K. Rowling, she wrote the book Harry Potter, that whole series. She says this: "There are all kinds of courage. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends." Wait, what? Standing up to our friends can be just as hard as standing up to Pharaoh? I think that's called peer pressure. I think you know that that's true. Sometimes when our friends want us to do something that isn't the right thing, it can be really, really difficult to stand up to them. Let's say your friends are all laughing at a new kid who came to school or moved to your neighborhood or whatever. Or let's say they're posting embarrassing pictures on Instagram or Facebook or Snapface or whatever it is that you might be on social media-wise, the older kids out there. Sometimes if you stand up to your friends, they might turn on you and be like, "Why are you being so mean? I was just joking." Boy, have you ever heard that? I was just joking. I always think that when someone says I was just joking, they actually weren't joking, because it kind of hurts feelings. Maybe you decide to just be quiet and you don't laugh and you don't post pictures. But this is important. When you're silent, it can communicate that you're okay with what's happening. Now, we know that when we talk about racism or sexism or any of those other things, if we're silent while some of those things are happening, then people might assume that we're just okay with it. The midwives weren't silent. They didn't do what Pharaoh wanted them to do. Their actions spoke so loudly and with bravery. And it's a good thing, because without the midwives' actions, Moses would have been killed. It can be really hard to do what's right when your friends are making harmful choices. When you find yourself in that situation, remember the midwives. If they can do it, so can you. Let's watch this video about ways that we can encourage each other or learn about resisting peer pressure.
Today, you and I are going to talk about how to deal with peer pressure. Welcome back to Talk About It Tuesdays. I'm your host, Jordan, and today we're going to talk about peer pressure. But before we get into it, make sure to stay to the end of this video to hear this week's tip for next week's taco. But first, let's talk about today's taco. If you guessed last week a build your own taco, you are correct. That's leading into the first point on peer pressure, is how you can make your own choices, you can make your own decisions, you have your own voice, and nobody has to choose for you. You can choose yourself. So this taco is a representation of that. You and I have our own voice, we have our own, we can make our own decisions, and just like building this taco, it's our own way. We don't have to respond to peer pressure or make a taco how other people expect us to do it or make it or say it. Guys, always trust your gut. If your friend is trying to sway your opinion or something isn't sitting right with you and something just feels wrong, most likely it is wrong. So always follow your stomach because it's probably going to be right. Peer pressure is pretty hard to fight off. So that's why it's important to surround yourself with friends and like-minded people that take your best interest to heart. Surround yourself with people that you trust and you know that won't force you to do anything you don't want to do. Most importantly, you should know that you can always lean on a parent or an adult you trust for advice. You never have to go through things alone. I always like to go to my mom whenever I'm struggling or fighting with a friend, or I just don't know what is right and what is wrong. But I do know that it isn't the easiest to get the words out. It's because sometimes you're embarrassed about the situation and you don't really want to say them out loud. So you could just write a letter or send a text if that's easier, because I know that works for me most of the time. Now it's time for this week's hint for next week's taco. Are you ready? Here it is. Beauty is only shell deep. Can you guess what it is? Put up here if you think you know. See you guys next week. Bye! Peace.
Thank you so much for being with me in Youth Church. I really miss seeing all of you. Gather around. Here it is, our song of blessing.
May God give you eyes to see all that is good, all that is good. The courage for anything. May you be strong, may you be strong. May God give you ears to hear His loving voice, His loving voice, speaking all around you, all around, and inside. May God give you eyes to see all that is good, all that is good. The courage for anything. May you be strong, may you be strong. May God give you ears to hear His loving voice, His loving voice, speaking on